Howdy, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this new quarter stream. It's a new thing that we're trying out here at dadageek. If you don't know, my name is Kyle Evans, and I am the managing director at dadageek. dadageek is a school that's been around for about 5 years, specializing in working with art and technology and creative uses of technology, and I'm super excited to share our really awesome quarter with you guys. Alberto is joining us, as well as we have many instructors that are going to be joining us throughout the event. But Alberto, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Alberto Chapa. I'm an Ableton certified trainer, and I'm working with dadageek to help grow our community and come up with fun, exciting events for everybody to really learn about what we're doing at dadageek and what we're trying to do with our courses. And for those people that haven't discovered the amazing talent in the faculty, we hope that you jump on this stream. And if you're streaming us live, you can interact with us, ask us any questions you have in real time. If you're watching this after the fact, please reach out through our website, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Absolutely. Yeah. So feel free if you've got some questions about dadageek or any of the classes, we're going to go through all of them and talk about them. But if you have any general questions about any of it, feel free to reach out and talk to us about it. You can chat us up on YouTube, chat us up on Facebook, or you can reach out to me directly, kyle@dadageek.com. Anytime, or you can find all of our contact information and our form to fill out on the website. So feel free to reach out anytime. So I want to talk a little bit about dadageek. We are, like it says in the bottom down there for y'all that are in this stream, School for Immersive Art and Expressive Technology, uniting code, hardware, art, and design. We do a lot of really awesome classes. We, of course, are right now fully virtual, which is really cool because it gives us the opportunity to be able to reach a lot of people. So we can reach people all over the world. It was pretty awesome. My last class last quarter, where we are based in Austin, Texas. In this last quarter, I had people that were based everywhere outside of Austin, Texas, all over, not only just through Texas, but throughout the United States and the entire world. So it was really cool to be able to reach a broader community. So we're excited to be able to do that kind of stuff. And as we've been growing, we've been able to offer more opportunities for people as well. So say, for example, expanding our dadageek scholarship program, which is something that we're very, very proud of. So if you are interested in our dadageek scholarship program, we've got some really cool opportunities for people that would be wanting to take classes, but maybe don't have access to the money to be able to take any of our classes. This would be the opportunity to be able to jump on that. So yeah, Alberto, thank you for pulling up the website. So if you go and you click on the top of our website, there is a dadageek scholarship page. And you can see a lot of things inside of there, like our different types of scholarships as well. Not only beyond scholarships, we also have payment plans. So go and explore that and look and see what's available, because we have a lot of different types of options. So always feel free to reach out if you have any questions about our scholarship. We accept several scholarships each year or each quarter. So there's a lot of great opportunities there.
Awesome. And speaking of the quarter, Kyle, I just wanted to walk people through when they come to our website. You've done a really, really good job of integrating the courses into our website recently, and that can't go unsaid. But if you just go to dadageek.com, scroll a little bit down, you can see a post about our new courses. And check this out. This is awesome. We're going to be talking about some of these courses. We've got some of the instructors with us tonight here to answer your questions and just illuminate us with what they're trying to teach you all.
Absolutely, yeah, and also, you know, if the dadageek course is not necessarily what you want to do, but you know someone who's interested in doing this, we actually do offer gift cards. So Alberto, if you scroll down to the bottom of that page, you can see there actually is a gift card option right there. So you can send a gift card to a friend or relative for a gift, or as well, if you're just wanting, feeling it in your heart to donate to our cause, we do have a dadageek scholarship fund donation as well. So if you just want to donate, anything goes a long way, and that money goes directly toward our scholarship fund, which helps to support other students taking all of our classes. So like I said, we're based in Austin, Texas. We've been around for just over 5 years now, and we've been growing as an organization, but we are a nonprofit organization, which means what our goal is to just reach more people and bring this type of education to more people. So, before we get started into talking about the different classes, which I'm really excited about because we've got our instructors here to actually chat with us about it, I do want to share a few images of some of the recent things that dadageek and some of our surrounding organizations have been up to. So I'm going to share some images real quick. Sorry guys, in the Zoom room, y'all won't be able to see it, but the people out in the stream will be able to see some of this media. So I'm going to show y'all some slides real quick. Let me transition over here. So this was the recent Bee Cave Buzz Fest that dadageek was very much so involved in. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit more because I was involved with a lot of the lighting and projection. And I'm going to talk about how all of that kind of stuff came into play in regards to my class. But this was a really spectacular event that we held out at the Hill Country Galleria in Bee Cave recently. And it was a massively successful event. And let me transition to another slide. We had some beautiful artworks, some amazing performers in a large outdoor environment. So it was a spectacular thing to be involved in. And a lot of our dadageek people were involved in it, tons of dadageek volunteers. Some incredible light-based artworks that were just so much fun to experiment with and build at our headquarters, Data Lab, in Austin, Texas. And there was just so much fun that we had doing this thing. Now, one thing that was really fun is that we had the opportunity to have a brand new exhibition as well, a dadageek focused exhibition that was held at the Hive, which is a spot at the Hill Country Galleria, where we had some of our most favorite dadageek pieces and some brand new ones from students and instructors. So I'm going to go through some of these so you can check them out. So say, for example, like this is a project from Emmett Palima. He does these really amazing PCB art designs with LEDs and things along those lines. Let me look for some other ones here. Here's another amazing piece that was created by Ryan Paget, as well as a team of his also that did some really amazing work with audio and visualizing audio and creating like a touchless user interface. It was a really interesting and immersive piece. And then as well, say, for example, Andrew Martin working on his light bar cube. He made a really cool piece. He's been working on this for a long time, so it's really cool to see more and more iterations of this piece. And even doing things like working with projection mapping on these pieces that we've worked with for a while, where we work with this lion and this bunny and do these projection maps, visuals onto their faces. And you can walk up to those ring lights and your own face will be projected onto the animals. So it's a lot of fun and a lot of really cool things that were going on here. So we'll talk about it. I'll switch back to us, Alberto. There you go. So we'll talk about it a little bit more later in regards to some of my class and the types of things that I did involved with that.
Can I mention and just give a shout out to the volunteers? A way to get involved with dadageek is through some of the events. Sometimes we need a hand from people. And just wanted to shout out to Edgar, Kyler, Raymond, and Cesar that helped in their way pull the event together. And it was really cool that they were sourced from alumni of the school that wanted to do something cool in the community. Maybe get out of the house for a little bit in a safe outdoor environment and work around art. And they all said they had a really good time helping pull it off.
Absolutely. No, it was huge to have them around. It was definitely, they had to be around. We would not be able to have done that without them. So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I let's start talking about some of these classes. What do you think, Alberto? Do you want to jump into it?
Yeah, definitely. And then I just want to remind people we still have an early bird going on.
Oh, so, yeah, absolutely.
Seeing all this and taking this in, this is a really good time to follow up on maybe a new start for 2021. Maybe you want to have a career pivot. Maybe you just want to find a different medium to express yourself creatively. So this is a really good opportunity. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about the early bird before we get into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you jump on right now, I believe it goes until the 14th, if I'm not mistaken. So you might want to jump on it pretty quick because there's not that much time left. But you can go ahead and save some money registering for these classes. Those quarter will start in February, the first week of February. And all of our courses are 6 to 9 p.m. and all of them are held online. The 6 to 9 p.m. Central Time. All of them are online. And also one thing that a lot of people always ask me is, are the lectures recorded? And yes, they are. All the lectures are recorded, and our instructors then supply them to the students. So even if you were to miss a day, or if your schedule doesn't work out that you can always make every single class, then it's okay, because the lectures are recorded, and you can reach out to the instructor at a different time if you have any questions about the materials that were covered. All right, so check out our discount, jump on it. Check out also our scholarship program, because there's a lot of really good opportunities there. Don't pass that up. So make sure to check that out. Let's go ahead and jump into some of these classes. So I know the first one that we had listed out on our schedule was talking about Intro to Algorithmic Composition in Ableton Live with the very own, the man, Mr. Adam Fengsrud. Adam, you want to join us real quick? Maybe
I'm unmuted.
Yes,
and
you are.
There's
there
my
you
video.
Are. Yes. Hey, how's it going, Adam?
Going good.
Excellent, excellent. So yeah, Adam, you are a certified Ableton trainer. So is Alberto, by the way. Well, we have some Ableton crew in the house for sure at dadageek. But Adam, do you want to talk about your class, and also why this class is different and unique than some of the other Ableton classes that you've taught, or some of the other ones that are out there?
Yeah, so this is the first time I'm going to be teaching this class for dadageek, or really for anybody else, and it's sort of a passion of mine, this whole concept of algorithmic composition and generative music and things like that. So it's really nice to be able to form a curriculum around that and teach that. And like Kyle said, I think it is kind of a little bit unique in the Ableton space, which is very much focused on beat making, which is great and fun. And I, of course, teach classes on that as well. But Ableton is also extremely useful as a sort of canvas for sonic art and generative music, and just kind of exploring the fringes of what's possible with music and algorithms. So I've been working in Max and Ableton doing this kind of stuff for quite some time. It's actually what I wrote my master's thesis on. So it's really neat to be able to use some of the tools that I've developed and some of the patches and everything, and actually, bring it into a formal class. So yeah, the idea of algorithmic composition is it's a little weird, but if we just sort of break it down into what it actually stands for, the first word, obviously, algorithmic, we just need to ask ourselves the question, okay, well, what is an algorithm? Any ideas? I think my dadageek peers might have some pretty good notions on this one.
John Mike would probably have the exact answer. I know he would.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah. It's one of those words that people throw around all the time, but it's sort of a weird one to define. Yeah, random number generators. That's what Matthew just wrote in the chat.
There you go.
That is probably the most rudimentary and basic way to do generative music or algorithmic composition. But an algorithm is really just a way of doing things. It's a process. So usually when we think about algorithms, we think about computers, because computers work on algorithms, but really you can use rudimentary physical algorithms as well. So like Michael was saying, random number generators, that's actually something that you can do without a computer, right? You can flip coins, for example. There's a lot of, you draw cards out of a deck, and in fact that's what John Cage was doing way back in the day in the 50s, flipping coins, doing generative scores that way. And of course, now that we have computers, it just becomes much, much easier. So an algorithm is a way of doing things. And so when you're trying to do algorithmic music, you're figuring out different programs, different ways of doing things, so that the music is going to, or the sound art or whatever it is you're doing, is going to gain in complexity almost unpredictably or by itself. So rather than this sort of top-down notion of control where you're just creating everything and producing a track, it's more of a bottom-up approach where you are creating the rules or the constraints for your algorithms, for your compositions, and then you're just kind of hitting play and letting it grow in complexity based on your rule set. So yeah, random number generators is a great place to start, right? So if you're making random music, you can use a random note generator. That would be a really good example of an algorithmic process, right? But what are some of the problems with that? I just have a random
I assume it could be all over the place, and it's kind of there's no connection to it, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can just kind of get this weird atonal stuff, especially if you're not even constraining it to notes in a chromatic scale, just random frequencies, for example. So once you start adding rules, though, you can start to craft what happens there. So, if you have something totally random, occasionally something amazing will happen, right? But then it might be terrible for the next 2 hours. So the question is, well, how do I make the stars align? How do I make that happen more often? And you do that by creating rule sets. So if we take the example of like a random note generator, well, yeah, we could confine it to the chromatic scale. That's a good step right there. Or we could confine it to a specific diatonic scale. We could set rules as far as timing is concerned, quarter notes, whole notes, things like that. We can establish rules for chords. And once we start sort of curating this randomness, we can create really, really cool things that are still interesting and unexpected, but actually pleasant to listen to, right? So there are a lot of ways to make the stars align with algorithms. You can take inspiration from nature, for example. That's one of the best ways to do it. There are so many amazing patterns in nature. And of course, the patterns that we see in nature are created by very simple physical processes that result in the emergence of complex forms. So, for example, fractal geometry, tree growth patterns. We could even take, global warming cycles. Anything that data-based or nature-based can actually feed into our compositional techniques. And when you want to get really hardcore about it, you can even start dabbling into things like genetic algorithms. Of course, the most complex thing we know of in the universe is like the human brain, probably. Well, how did that happen? Well, we have a set of simple rules creating more and more complexity over time. And we can do that with computers using genetic algorithms. So you get results that you like. Well, go ahead and crossbreed them, mutate them a little bit, create children, right? And then figure out which ones sound good using some kind of bottleneck or selection process, rinse and repeat. And you can create incredibly complex, interesting sounds on maybe a synth that has 1,000 parameters that you don't even understand. You can start with the randomness and then just slowly get it where you want it.
Wow.
So by taking inspiration from nature and all these different algorithmic processes, it can be very artistically stimulating and create some cool results.
I love that process. I mean, like flipping it on its head, essentially, right? I mean, the whole composition process. And I especially imagine that it's really useful when I know that I'll use this technique sometimes if I can't think of a place to start, right? And it's like where can I generate something and then just see where it goes, and then maybe that develops an idea, and then I can build on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's really a different way of thinking about music and art in general, right? And the roots can even go back as far as, like I said, John Cage in the 50s. And in the 60s, you get the conceptual art movements and happenings and things like that, where artists are starting to think that like their ideas are just as important as the artwork, where they're kind of taking a hands-off approach a little bit and allowing things to happen. And we can do that using computer code now. And Ableton Live is really great for that. One thing I will say, we are going to be using Max for Live in the class. There will be some Max programming. So this is a class where Ableton Suite will be required, or Ableton Standard with the Max for Live expansion. So a certain degree of basic Ableton knowledge is going to be required because we will be, getting pretty deep into some programming and stuff like that.
Yeah, so not necessarily an intro class, but not far beyond that. Just some basic knowledge of Ableton.
I mean, as long as you have the basic Ableton knowledge to use the software, you're gonna be fine.
Awesome. That sounds great, man. That sounds really cool. I'm excited to see what students make with this. One of the things that we do with Data Geek, which we didn't mention, is that we do the student exhibition. every quarter, and we're going to do another virtual exhibition this upcoming quarter. So we're always exhibiting student work, and we want to do more of it on social media platforms and always presenting it in live streams and things like that. So I'm excited to see what kind of work that students actually generate from your class. It's algorithmic work.
Yeah, no pun intended, right?
Yep.
And the cool thing about it is you can take it in so many directions. That's why I made sure to include music as well as sound art, right? You can do a traditional composition, or you can just get completely abstract and weird with it.
Awesome.
And even eventually take it into audio-visual territory too, if you want to do that.
That sounds amazing. Do you have any examples you can show us?
Yeah, I realize I'm kind of running into someone else's time here, so let me just do something real quick.
Sure.
I have just a basic generative project in Ableton Live just to show some of the processes you can use. I'll share my computer sound. Okay, does everybody see what I have here?
I do see it.
Cool. So this is an example of a song that is pretty much playing itself. I'm creating a basic set of rules. We'll just hit play, and it'll do its thing. Now, if we take a look at the different tracks, the different ways I'm accomplishing that, this first track right here, I'm using a very simple process in Ableton Live called follow actions. So I just have a few different variations of drums, and then I'm using follow actions to randomly kind of jump around between them. But the follow actions are going to weight different ones a little more heavily than others based on, how useful they are rhythmically. Now this next track is going to be using a drum synth, which is a really great way to generate complexity, and we're using some random LFOs to manipulate parameters on the different drum synth hits. Over here is a Max for Live device called Instant House that's really useful for generating rhythmic patterns based on sets of rules. And this one is actually going to be randomizing new patterns and then using a buffer shuffler Max for Live device to chop up and rearrange the audio buffer. And we have a pad using a traditional technique right here, a random note generator, but as you can see, I'm constraining it to a C minor scale. Then we're hitting an arpeggiator that is probability based. So it's going to be jumping up and down octaves. And then we have this bass track and another arp that are all kind of following the pad. So I'll just hit play and we'll hear what it sounds like. So really complex sounding, infinitely complex. It's a song that will play forever if you let it, and it will never really be the same twice, but only using 6 tracks, just with a variety of different generative tricks.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You can tell there's a lot of complexity that was inside of there, right? A lot of those small, intricate elements moving around and constantly changing and always fluctuating and never repeating. It's pretty interesting stuff, man.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really fun way to work and very inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Adam, thank you so much for joining us. Those of you that are interested in taking Adam's class, his class is Intro to Algorithmic Composition in Ableton Live. He's teaching, it's going to be starting on February 2nd. So you can go check out that class over at dadageek.com. Go to dadageek.com, and up at the top, there's a courses tab. And then that'll bring you right to all of our courses. All right, Adam, thank you so much, man.
Sure thing.
So yeah, if anyone ever has any questions about the classes, feel free to reach out in the chat or reach out to us via email anytime. So let's move on. Let's move right along onto another class. So I know we have on our schedule, the next up we had was Matt. Matt Steinke is joining us for his course,
Hello.
Intro to Robotic Art. What's going on, man?
So I teach this class. I feel like it seems like it's popping up once every couple of years. It's pretty seldom that I actually get to teach it. But this is what I do. So this is kind of my main form, and I've been doing this kind of work for about 20 years. So I have a lot of secrets and a lot of insight into this kind of really just how to present the work, where to present it, and how to source the or to research this kind of work when you're making it. So essentially, robotic art really kind of is, I mean, in the 60s and 70s, people used to call art that involved machines or mechanical parts, they called it kinetic art. And then in the 80s and 90s and beyond, they started calling it robotic art. Probably the better term for it these days would be to call it mechatronic, I think. But it really, what you're doing is you're controlling high voltage or high current devices with digital control. So you're able to interface motors, lights, servos, solenoids.
What do you use
hacked machines?
What do you use to interface with it?
So yeah, so that's always really the question: is how do you connect a light bulb to a USB port, for example, to your computer, right? What's in between? That is kind of the big, really the first step is sort of understanding how to use what are called transistors and relays. And so using controlling devices with Arduinos and then connecting them to transistors and relays will let you handle higher current devices. So things that you plug into your computer or to your MIDI gear, your synthesizers, those are all very low current devices, and you can't power motors with them. So
yeah,
that's part of it. And then that gets into sort of the other big piece of the picture, which is power supplies. And power supplies are a little boring, but they're good to learn about, and they're super important to know about when you're dealing with this kind of work, because you really have to match your current draw with what you're providing.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Does someone need a background in electronics to take your course? 'Cause it sounds like you're going over a lot of electronic stuff, right?
Yeah, I don't say you don't need a background in electronics. No, but you need to be able to be open to learning electronics, because that's definitely part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a huge opportunity for people if anyone's interested in learning some basic electronics. That's a huge thing, especially like motors and solenoids and relays and all that kind of stuff. And you mentioned Arduino. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have probably heard that before that might be interested in it. So you're going to be doing a little bit of programming in there as well.
Yeah, so we'll be programming Arduinos, and then we'll also be kind of setting our Arduinos up to run autonomously, but then also we're going to control them with software using pure data on our laptops. So we're kind of running the gamut of all the different ways to digitally manipulate physical objects that are like machines and things like that. There's one thing I want to say. Oh yes, and the other thing that that you'll learn, which is also really practical, is, like I mentioned earlier, is the power supply issue, which is really, really helpful, especially if you want to do any kind of sound installation in the future that involves any of this kind of material, or if you're wanting to do or repair your music gear, for example. It's also very practical on that level. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, can you talk about how like robotic art is inside your work? I know it's so much inside of your work, but can you talk a little bit about your work and the kinds of ways in which this class is incorporated and draws from your personal works? I mean, some of your work is some of my favorite personal work that of Austin artists. I love your robotic pieces, and I love your performances as well. So you have different avenues of your artwork. So yeah, can you talk a little bit about what you make and what you do?
Yeah, so I got started. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah,
I got started in music, more or less. I mean, I've kind of always been a musician and an artist, but I definitely, like, my people are like the Dota geek people. I come from a media arts background, and so I I started playing music in the 90s in various bands, and I started a project called Octant, and we used a robotic drum kit. And so that's where I got started, was basically controlling large solenoids to play percussion for this sort of electronic rock noise band I was in. So that's where I got started. And then that eventually, I eventually went to graduate school and sort of at the Art Institute of Chicago, and they had a pretty developed kinetic art department there. And so I've sort of broken down like the practice into gestural robotics and functional robotics. And functional robotics would be like robotic musical instruments, for example, like if you had a flute that played itself, or if you had like I mentioned earlier, a drum set that played itself. And then 3D printing would probably fall into that under that as well, or drawing machines. Drawing machines are kind of like 3D printers, but they paint or draw on paper. And then we have gestural robotics, which are probably more about how the robotic instrument or the sculpture comes off visually, and how it moves. So it's probably closer related to choreography and dance in that sense, maybe even traditional, or maybe closer to animation in a sense. And so like kinetic art and lighting, like kinetic art that maybe involves lighting or servo controlled lighting would fall into that category. And that's kind of how I break up the class. We sort of, think about what our projects are, and kind of sort of make technical decisions based on what our intentions are.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. So it's very much so a project-oriented class then. So students are kind of come in and learn some things, and then they get to generate their own projects and focus on whatever ideas that they have.
Yeah, but I'm also going to be demoing like what is a cam or what is a rack and pinion gear setup. So you'll be able to see a lot of the different kinds of ways in which you might, for example, convert rotary motion into linear motion, or tackle certain kinds of problems, and start to learn the language of electromechanics, not just turning things on and off, but also how do you make something move in a particular kind of way.
This is great. I mean, it's like a full package class, because you've got some like electrical engineering, you've got some mechanical engineering inside of there, some computer sciences with programming, right? Kind of all packaged into not a class that's focused on artwork, So it's not it's like about like using your creativity to activate all of these areas. So that's really great. I think there's a lot of things that people can get out of this.
And maybe folks watching know somebody that sort of fits the profile, right? That likes to build stuff and is somewhat artistically inclined, that might benefit from a class like this, and giving them that friendly nudge with a gift card or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And if you want, I can show you some quick examples of my work and student work.
Yeah, let's check it out.
I wanted to tell folks they could also go to the Hive, right, Matt? There's
the gallery exhibition will open back up. It's closed right now, but we'll be announcing once it's fully back up and everything again. But Matt does have a piece up in the Hive right now.
Yeah, well, I'll just show you a couple glimpses at some stuff, and some of it's video, but it's video of robotic work, and some of it's I'll just show it to you, and then I won't talk over it, but I'll just kind of skim through, and then
sure,
I'm going to show some of my work, and I'm going to end with some student work from the past.
Sounds great.
So here we go.
I love that. It's like it's like surreal and cartoonish and interesting. I love the color scheme that you're choosing there. It's really great.
Thanks. This is basically some robotic performances for video, and this piece in particular has a robotic wash tub bass. So it's playing using servos. It's playing this string and it's stretching the string for the bass line, and then this ear is sort of performing the melody lines, and then this mallet is basically just playing the percussion, simple percussion.
I couldn't tell if it was clay stop motion animation at first. It looks so surreal.
Yeah.
So this is kind of an example of a combination of gestural robotics and sort of like functional robotics or practical. This is an installation piece, and this is at the Hive. Mm-hmm. So I was just gonna play a quick video of this. All right, and so, oops. This next one is just some student work that I've collected over the years from Dadageek.
Mm-hmm.
Because before you even look up all this, you gotta and that is
speaking of which, I have something for you. Yeah.
the googly eyes are a nice touch.
The pipes are making air pressure.
And then I converted that to
So it's kind of a range of stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, it's like a little bit of everything in there. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I like clearly each student came in with their own interests and focuses, and they got to create their own works based on that. Just with like whatever you deliver, you give this knowledge, and it's kind of like here's this palette, and then they get to create their own system, their own design, whatever they're interested in.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things that you can. I mean, you can also, like you saw, the last piece was just radios that somebody was turning on and off.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to actually build anything if you don't want to. You can just hack stuff, which is really fun too.
That's
still
awesome.
My hats off to you though, as an instructor, Matt. That creating a course that's so accessible and people can come in and make completely different things out of different materials with different types of ways for people, the audience to interact with it is very commendable, because that doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so cool. Yeah. And this is, I like that this is an introductory course. It's like, so you don't have to have a background in these things to come in and start exploring this. If you're just interested in it, then start engaging with it and start exploring it. I love that.
Yeah, and it's a lifetime process. So you can it's definitely not the kind of thing that you can learn in a weekend. So
Sure.
it's a practice.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
if you're intimidated by getting materials or something like that, Matt's put together a really comprehensive list too on the website of what you would need in order to like go through the course successfully.
Awesome. Man, I'm excited to see. I always love what the students make in your class, so I'm super excited to see what they come up with for this next one.
Yeah, me too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Matt, thank you so much, man. I really
Yep,
appreciate you
thanks for
coming
having me.
by and talking. All right, man. Take it easy.
Take care.
All right, so yeah, thanks everyone that's still joining us. If you're watching it live, feel free to reach out to us in the chat if you have any questions. If you're watching this later on, feel free to reach out to us. My email is kyle@dadageek.com, or you can reach out to us at dadageek.com and find our contact form. So you can find all of our classes at dadageek.com. And, thank you, Alberto. So you go up to the top tab where it says courses, and we've got all these awesome courses down here. So we're going to go through these because we still got some more instructors who are with us. And I believe that up next we have Dr. Thomas Eccles is joined us. There he is.
How dare you?
I know, right? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. It is great to see you. I got to actually see you for a brief moment earlier today, and I get to see you again.
Really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
tell us about your course, which is let me pull up what is the full title of
Full
your
title
course is.
Um,
Here it
music-
is.
Multimedia artists.
Music theory for multimedia artists. That is awesome, and also really interesting that you're teaching not only just a music theory course, but for multimedia artists. That's a
Right,
really
yeah.
interesting combination. Tell us about the course.
Yeah, so it's particularly geared towards, if you are somebody who works in a DAW like Ableton or what have you, or if you work with Arduino, or if you work with Max MSP or Super Collider or Pure Data. This is just about, with all of those, when you're doing sound-based art, you're thinking of music in a particular way that I use just for music theory students anyway, which is just thinking in numbers with music. So I've made a bunch of apps that I actually, it's been a long time project for me, making kind of theory apps that I've done for my students, but now they're good enough that I'm just about to release the first kind of installment of my like kind of suite that
Awesome.
people can subscribe to. And so that's what we're going to be using with this class. And music theory is always a word that I'm not crazy about, like those two words together. I just view it as just music. This is just what we use. You can use to make music with. It's just music stuff. But now you don't need to be thinking analytically about what you make, but it can be fun and it's a way of going. So I could show some of the apps that we use.
Yeah, no, I totally love to see that. And that's so totally like the Data Geek vibe. Is like music and app creation, right? Like coming together. Yeah. I love that you created a set of apps to do this.
These are really fun, and so here's a few of them. There's more than this, actually. There's a bunch, but these are a few of my faves, and so these. So this is, it's a class of just learning about ideas and things, but also we can use these apps to generate MIDI files or run them into a DAW so that people for their projects can make maybe someone that's taking another class or something, or that's using music, or making something just with me here, but we would record into a DAW musical projects that I'll be helping people with. But here is just like, this is kind of like this is what I call a workstation. We have a few of these where it's like some basic, very basic ideas here. And, I got the Zoom stuff in my way here. Let me see. So, this is like, ways of playing with sound and learning about interrelations. This is like kind of you know, we'll have a class where we'll talk, but then people can actually like, you know, I think there's a synth voice in here somewhere. Yeah, that you know, you could like slow this down. So it's algorithmic in the way this works. Oh, I got my other synth voice. I got the wrong synth voice. Here, let me stop this for just a second. I got 2 apps open that are in Max, which is not
gotcha.
Really,
yeah.
so they're kind of talking to each other.
Uh-huh.
Let me go to another one that I'm more prepared to look at. But this is like kind of some basics that we talk about and like ways of exploring. You know, these all kind of like show you some elements. And then, you know, we get into things like we'll look at pieces. Like this is a prelude by Chopin. Let's hear what this is. So this is one of my favorite pieces ever, but this is interactive. So now, say I get to the end of this piece.
Oh, wow.
See how it moves through, and it's showing us analytical concepts that are, these ideas are taken from, a lot of stuff that I study.
Yeah.
Let me turn this on. So watch. I have a granular synthesis. This has like a granular synthesis engine, so you can kind of like dive into the piece and get to understand the harmonies and stuff that make it in a way that like I'm a classical guitarist, I do with guitar, or a pianist can do, but you can kind of live in it. So check it out. You can also have some fun like this.
Huh.
You know, but so this is an example of looking at a piece, which is part of what we do is learn a bit from looking at pieces. We look at this, we look at a Radiohead song. And then let me close that. And then here's another little app that's an example. This one has various interfaces. Let me open this up for a second here so I can get a menu. Okay. So, you know, you could be looking at a piano if you like, and this is going to show you. So what I did here is this little harmonic progression maker, so I can, you know, enter in Roman numerals, you see, and this represents like kind of harmonic concepts. I'm going to delete that and maybe go, oops, yep. What is it talking to? Hold up. I'm going to close you. And now, okay. So. So this is actually algorithmic composition too, which is where it is moving through a progression. Imagine you're in like, say, B flat. We'll learn what these things mean as we move through the class. But see, a thing that we do is we, you know, your good old heart and soul. Let me, if you don't mind for a second here, I'll just do a really simple, you know, kids piano song kind of thing, right?
Sure.
So we get like a bum ba dum da dum ba dum da dum ba dum ba dum da dum dum. That's a bum bum bum, like, you know, just kind of kids music type of stuff. So now, here. Now it's improvising, and let me open up the synth voice here, and you know, just change this out. Now notice it's going to keep kind of changing as it moves through. See, it just kind of decided to go to a different sound for the first one. and a person could follow on a keyboard, or a person could follow on a guitar.
Oh, cool. So it's got tabs as well.
Yeah, it's got tabs. It's got like, yeah, see, that's what that is a little guitar fretboard. This is sheet music.
Oh, wow.
And also it generates MIDI files and things. So this is an interactive thing that I use to show lots of things. Look, this is improvising just on this one chord sound. So it's like learning to like prolong ideas. See, watch. And there's principles that make it work in the way that it does so that it sounds nice.
Yeah.
That we learn about in the class. Like, yeah, if you want to make something that moves, from chord, I happen to have my guitar here because I was teaching lessons before this. But if I were to go from like this chord to this chord, it sounds a little bit fine. It sounds fine, but I kind of express a certain know what I'm doing this by doing it this way. Like that instead. Because I'm like not making all of my singers go bo ba like way high, and that's called efficient voice leading, And we do things all the time that don't do that. See, that's the thing. I love teaching this class because it's we're looking at Ligeti and Varese, and we'll look at a Chopin piece, and we'll look at a Radiohead piece, and just different and things that people have of interest. I look at some jazz things and. But the idea is not that there are rules, but rather that there are principles that we can kind of like explore. And it's the same thing as like kind of anything like cooking, and like knowing that like certain things kind of go well together, and you can like have incredibly dissonant sounding wild stuff, like, so this improvises this progression. We're not going to be sitting there forever, but I could do that same thing like this, but I could do it like, let me give it a shot. And that's doing the same thing, but in a different way. See?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. See, it's like about knowing, I don't know, ways of exploring sound. And so I make these apps so that people can improvise with the apps, generate sounds, knowing what they're doing. And, it's a way of exploring those kind of little principles and stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, one of the things that I know, I'm an electronic music maker, so I make a lot of electronic music, but I don't have a background in music theory. Right. And so a lot of it, I'm just kind of like just experimenting. Right. But not really knowing where I'm going, but thinking like if I understood how to make these musical connections, it help to improve my thought for making music in so many different ways. And it looks like you have these apps that are just like tools laid out to help people make those connections.
They really are. And I love you putting it that way, because that's the thing is that it's like, and the first thing that always comes up with new students, or when I've taught this course the last couple times, is like kind of talking about that like it's not. See, I don't agree with the idea of using music theory to say something's bad, or to like say that you have more like your piece is better because you use some musical theory ideas or something. No way, because see, it's a language, music, sound. It's just, if it sounds good to you, then cool. You can just explore and experiment like the way we speak. But it can be fun when, and these tools are meant there to give people gateways to expand their palette, like get out of their habits, like find ways of structuring things, maybe if they want to like really keep their material really, really tight, and not like grab a new idea, but find a way of manipulating this old idea. So I keep my material really tight or something, or like, or just kind of like, when you have writer's block, just learning to do the equivalent of like Adam said with John Cage, like throwing dice or playing I Ching. I'm a very process-based person. So I love these types of ideas and stuff is just another way of doing that, of like, okay, I'm gonna make myself a few kinds of, like, a lot of these apps, the thinking of them, there's these shapes and stuff that I explain to people that help to visualize ideas, and it's kind of like you have different kinds of dice or like wheels that move at different rates, and you get to play with them, and it's pretty kooky sounding, but it's really about like making a game out of it. I think it's about just making games.
Well, I mean, it almost, you know, and there's a lot of data there. It looks kind of complex. Do you have to have a background in music theory to come into this class?
No, none whatsoever. These apps go up from a simple place, but even this last one I showed you, where you put in those Roman numerals and stuff, the nature of it is that you can just play and explore, and then it goes deep. You can spend more and more time with it.
Oh, cool.
So like say this guy right here. This is basically a dissertation worth of stuff that's inside here that is explorable. See, when I click these, but the essentialness. Let me just show you that real quick. See how this shape right here has some notes, like music as a clock face, and see how this is connected to this by this red line.
Yeah.
What that red line. This is about what's called chromatic harmony, meaning all 12 notes are in play. So all 12 notes of the 12 equal tempered system. And so look, this line represents one note only moving by one half step, meaning the smallest step in this circle. So watch when I go to here, one note moved. Now watch when I go from this down this line, one note will move. All of these lines represent one note. See, now that one went. Now look here when I go to this. And now look here, I go to this. You see, now that's pretty simple to understand when you look at it that way, right? It's like
just one note changing.
Yeah, one note changing, that's all it is. But when you think about it, it's like a permutational thing. And this is something that has been shown by some great theorists, is kind of behind a lot of like the weirder moments in tonal harmony, you know, where that we like treat as separate things, but actually they have more core connectivity. And look at this chord up here. We don't even have to talk about what it is or what it's called, but that's its shape. And look down at the bottom, it's going to be the same square shape, but everything shifted down.
Yeah.
See, this is a 4-dimensional cube, which is crazy, right?
Oh, that's why Tesseract.
That's why this is a 4-dimensional cube. This is a cube, a 16 vertex cube, and that represents all permutations of moving from this down to this. See, I go down to here, I go down here, I go down here, I go down here, I get down to there.
Oh, and so eventually it makes it there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the different pathways down to there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You know, so that's what I mean by like, that's something that, you know, didn't take me very long to explain to you. And that is called efficient voice leading, which is, there's these concepts like near symmetry and all this stuff that are evocative and not that complex, not any more complex than what I just showed you there, but we just have to take them step by step. And we do that instead of me just talking at people, by us working with the apps and playing together with them.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of knowledge to get out of your class.
Yeah, it's fun. So, you know, yeah.
Devices alone are worth the tuition.
Yeah, right.
What'd you say?
The devices alone are worth the admission.
Yeah. Devices are pretty fun. You know, I think
amazing time to be a person making music. I think not necessarily a musician, but just a person making music.
Right. I think, you know, and that's the idea. And I'm like, you know, ideologically, as much as I love the idea of like, what if we just skill was, you know, I love learning on an instrument and learning to be good at an instrument, but I'm definitely for like just I'm into like smashing the hierarchy of like skill based like music hierarchy, you know. It's just like, what are your ideas and what do you have to say, and let's like, why do we need to, you know, like, so if these apps help some people to like jump over like years of stuff in a certain way, that's great, you know, like, because then more voices can, you know, explore ideas. I don't know. I think that's the idea behind it to me, is to try to make things kind of simple, and then you can actually, these will generate MIDI files and things too, and we'll integrate with DAWs, so you can actually like go from exploring this stuff. You can like capture something that you like and be like, oh, I'm going to put that into my synthesizer. You know, I'm going to put that into a project that I'm working on.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's fantastic, man. I'm really excited to see the outcomes of your class. I think there's a lot of knowledge up, but I think there's going to be a lot of people that should be really interested in that, especially people that are making music themselves, that want to take it to that next level and dive a little bit deeper. I think that's a perfect way to go. Cool, man. All right. Well, thank you, Tom, so much for joining us. Yeah, it was really good to see you, man. Take care.
You too. Take care.
Yeah, see you, man. All right, going forward, I see him, the man himself, Bill Byrne. There he is.
Oh, hi.
It's you. Yes.
You guys can hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
It's been a long time since I've been referred to as the man. So
yes.
Thanks for giving me that warm fuzzy, Kyle. I appreciate
it. Absolutely. So, Bill, I want you to tell us a little bit about your amazing course, creating a retro 2D platformer.
So, I've been teaching game design, and when Kyle and I were first talking about this class, one of the things that I wanted to do was find a way to really get into making, because one of the coolest things about making a game is you're making art at the same time as you're making it a working, functioning game. So you're always looking. So what I wanted to do was do a class around a game where we can make the art as we program the game. So, and Unity's a really great tool for that. So what I wanted to do was like, well, I like to play kind of old school looking, throwback games. And I think there's a lot of people out there that wanted to make games like that. And so I liked the idea of like, okay, one thing that's really cool to me coming from an animation background is when you're controlling like a player character, right? The player character walks and then runs, and then sometimes they stand, and then sometimes they jump. And so in a game, you take all of those different animation concepts and put the control over that in the hands of the player. And it's almost like you don't even realize that, the animation is changing because you've got that suspension of disbelief. You're in the game, so the character is walking to the left, and so, character walks to the left. And what's really going on is you're switching from one animation to another. And so what I wanted to do with the class was to have a class where we take some time to make the artwork together. I'll work on my character's walk while the students are working on theirs. And then we bring it all into Unity and start, connecting the game together. So that's the exciting part of the class with the integration of the artwork. So if you guys would like, I can show you the game that I made while I was working with my students last time.
Yeah.
And I'll go over some of the things that, we create. I'll show you one example of a game that a student made the last time I taught the class. I've only taught this class once for 2 folks. And though we had a great time with making the artwork, then bringing it into, and then, making it a part of the game itself. So I will go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah.
All right. So this is so we have a start screen, and I'll show you guys in a minute. It's kind of cool how each element that we're very comfortable in a game seeing is built out almost like it feels almost like a DVD menu of some kind. And you're basically telling the software, this information's changed, then we go to this. Okay, so this is my player character, right? And so character walks, switches to a jump animation. And what we do in the class is we have a conversation surrounding, okay, how high does the character jump? because if you make the character jump too high, what could happen is that the character will completely jump over the whole series of obstacles and get right to the portal and go to the next level. So you have to think about, okay, how much jump do we want to give the character? If you put the jump too low, the character is not able to jump over anything, and it's a really boring game. If they make the character jump just right, you may make it too easy. So there has to be kind of a mix. It has to be a mix of, things that the player can completely control, and then those random things that make it fun. So this game's rules are really simple. It's anytime you bump into an obstacle or an enemy, the health up here goes down. Anytime you reach a collectible, your health goes up. Okay. So over here, I've got one of the non-player characters, an enemy, and this guy will, if you make contact with him, he'll send you flying. So that's another thing to decide: how far back does he send your character? How much damage does that do? And then how much does each collectible help regenerate you? So I jump over here, go to the next level. We give you the level complete screen. Now this is like, I wanted to do Atari era graphics. Some of my students made stuff that look a lot cooler than what I made here. But the whole idea is to understand how the art interacts with the game system. So right now you'll see that my guy is kind of like, bumping up and down. That's the idle cycle. And when you give him new information, he goes into the walk or the jump. And by the way, I've neglected to mention I'm very bad at my game. So in any case, I wanted to quickly show you guys. So how it looks from the Unity side. Oh, and I also wanted to show you a little bit more about the art side. So before we got too far into any of the coding stuff, we were in Photoshop and literally we talked about, okay, how do we make a retro game style character? Okay. And the first thing that we do is make the character walk. And so we do the same classic process that has been done in games since the beginning, which is you make a frame movie, like basically your sprites. And so we just go through and I talk. So if somebody doesn't have experience with animation, I give them a very quick run through on walk cycles. The walk cycle, of course, it's just one part of this. With this same character, and as the class goes on, we have this character jump. We have this character do its idle cycle. We have all of the different things that this character is going to do. We build the animation for. Then we jump right into, in Unity, how that works within the game. So, actually, I cheated. I opened it up in Unity already. Okay. So, the character comes in, and in here, right, this is the structure of the animation cycle. So, the game begins, and then we have the criteria for what makes it go to the idle. Then when that information changes, we switch it to a run animation when the player is giving any sort of axis input. Then when the player hits the jump button, goes right into the jump animation. So that whole process of like merging the art with the programming, that's to me the really exciting part. Then, we work in our scene. Now, one of my students, last time I taught this, he was like, I really want to know how to do that parallax scrolling effect from classic games. And so, and really what it is, it's a matter of just having one background object sending an offset to another. So when I play it, so the camera's following the player, and then one set of buildings is sending an offset to the rear buildings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that creates a really cool effect.
Yeah, and so it looks like kind of a 3D effect.
Yeah.
But what's really going on is just like one object here, and they're just off of each other ever so slightly as you go by. It dates back to the late 1930s, and the camera that they built for Pinocchio. Disney wanted to use, he wanted to have multi-layered backgrounds, and so what they did is they had this huge camera with panes of glass, and what would happen is that the camera would go up and down over these panes of glass, and they could move them.
Oh, cool.
And so that opening shot from Pinocchio has that really cool depth, and this is like 1940, like the year my mom was born. She's 80. And like it has this like amazing depth, and what it is, it was like literally they had a multi-pane camera. Now it's all in here in this silly game that I made, and but it's the same exact principle. So we talk about like, okay, so this is kind of boring right now, right? We have just this character, walking. I mean, the parallax effect is cool, but it's almost like a background effect. And so we'll get into things like, how you can add in a platform, okay? And at first, your platform, it's there, but it doesn't do anything, okay? And so that's the other side. So you have the artwork, but then you also have to tell the game how this object is going to be used in the game. So you have to enter it into the physics system. So I'll add a component here for my physics 2D. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to add two elements. I'm going to add a rigid body. And that rigid body just makes it so that it interacts with the rest of the game. And if I play it, it just falls. Because you've now entered it into the physics of the game, but it doesn't know what it's supposed to do yet. Okay. Then what I'm going to need to do is collider. So I'm going to add a box collider. And what a box collider does is it says, okay, this object is in the game, and this is the shape that it's going to use to interact with the physics of the things happening in the game. So I'll edit the collider so that it is not giant, and just wrap it around this little platform here. And then what I'll do in that rigid body is I'm going to freeze its position so it doesn't go away on me. And I'll play it. And now I'll just have to do one thing. On my player, I want to make sure that my player can jump high enough to reach it. Okay. I turned off the change of the position, but I didn't turn off the rotation.
That's kind of cool. There's so much that you could do there. Yeah, I mean, like
rotating
platforms.
you could set up a whole bunch of rotating platforms, and just playing with physics is so much fun just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so so just playing with the physics, you can make, and there are plenty of games that just do that.
Mm-hmm.
I unfroze it. Now I froze the rotation, and you guys will see there's a platform. I can jump onto it, but it kind of looks like I'm floating on it almost. And that has to do with the shape of the collider. The other thing is this is where we get back into the sort of the art side. I can edit the collider, bring it down here, and that'll make it look like the character is standing directly on top of the platform. But if I do this, it'll make it look like he's walking on the platform.
Oh,
and
I
that's
see.
where you get more of that depth. So when I land on this now,
Oh,
it
wow.
actually looks
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'm walking. And so this is the part that I get really excited about, which is how you can, use the tools to manipulate it and make it a more engaging little world.
Yeah. Oh, that's super fascinating. There's so many little tiny little tricks and techniques inside of there. And I like how there's a historical connection as well, right? You know?
That's so my background is animation and motion graphics, and so I'm sitting here thinking about the historical context of everything, because I went to grad school and whatever. But it's also kind of, it's important to understand where this stuff comes from so that you can, that's where you can look for getting new techniques.
Yeah. Well, say someone that has never worked in like a program like Unity or has never worked with programming or anything along those lines. Is this a pretty good starting point for them?
Absolutely. So the only thing that I would say that I would like for people to come into the class with is some knowledge of Photoshop. And I'm not saying you need to be like a huge expert, and even if you had no knowledge of Photoshop, I can get you up to speed pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
More like every time I've taught this, I've had people in there that have had no experience with coding. And the thing is that the first few times so when you're in a game engine, right? Like say I want to work on something with my character, or I want to change some aspect of it, I can immediately jump into the code, and all it really is a series of instructions, and it's so much more logical and straightforward than you would ever think. You've got to learn a few things that I am very upfront in that I didn't study programming. I learned it because I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
And so my interests are what got me into that end of it. And really, it's like, to make a 2D platformer, you don't need to be at all an expert in C#. You have to just learn a few instructions and get the hang of that. And then, after the class, if you want to keep exploring that, there is a ton of material out there to learn on that. But the thing is that there's a few core concepts that once you get down, you can do so much.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it seems like it. No, and I think it's like the perfect intro to anyone who wants to get into game design. Like just learning the basics of Unity rather than creating into the basics, and let's learn this structure. And then you could take it to so many different places after that. Like once you understand the software and you understand the process, then you could just expand.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So right here, this is the scripts that we use in the game. And some of these are incredibly basic, like, so this here is the script to quit the game. And it's literally like you call a function, quit game, and then you can quit the game. It's, it's more like learning some pretty straightforward commands, like literally application.quit. So it's like there's a lot more intuitiveness to this than you would expect.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's so great, and it's amazing that there's a software like Unity out there that puts all that out there, and it's in a graphical interface form,
Yeah.
so you can actually move things around and see, and you can play your game in real time while you build it. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's rapid prototyping, yeah, it's so Unity itself is free.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so you can go download it now, and the thing is that what I think makes the class a really cool experience is that we're building a game together. So it's like, a lot of folks have the ability and they have the, wherewithal to learn this on their own, but you're in a class with myself and other students. We're all making a game at the same time. So it's like we go from having nothing to having a functioning 2D game by the end of the class. And so it's like, it's almost more about, having the time to committing the time to making something. And then, when you run into little problems, we figure it out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good way into a new set of skills that are really relevant today too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's great to have to be in a situation where you're actually in a classroom where you can just ask a question or you run into a problem and just hey, Bill, I don't get this. And you can be like, here, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
and
great.
The other thing too is that it's also too about building the resources.
Yeah. And keep going from there. Yeah. Awesome, Bill. Thank you so much for coming by and sharing that. It was really good and insightful. I don't have much experience at all with Unity, so it's nice to see to see a little bit under the hood and how it actually works.
It's the kind of thing where you would pick it up pretty fast. It's similar concepts.
Awesome. Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for coming by. I'm super excited to see what your students make.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, man.
All right, take care.
Take it easy, man. So yeah, so that was Bill doing his talking about his retro 2D platformer game course. So you can build your very own retro 2D platformer, which this seems like such a blast to do, and to learn game design, right? Get into it. It's like a great way to jump into this field. Yeah. All right, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving forward. So going forward, I think we are getting into John Mike territory, making synths with Arduino. John Mike, are you still with us?
Dr. Bleep, paging
there
Dr.
he
Bleep.
is, Dr. Bleep himself. How are you doing?
Not an actual doctor.
Okay.
I want to.
Yes.
I felt weird that it's listed as that since actual doctor. Mr. Thomas
Dr. Thomas Eccles is an actual doctor.
Yeah, no, I made up. I've gone to school for several minutes, and that's
well,
why I have to teach ACC now.
You know what? You're a doctor to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, hi. So I'm teaching how to make synthesizers with Arduino, and those are some words that have come up a lot this evening, and those are words that are all over the place in these kind of learning things. But really, when it gets down to it, it's how to start coding with the intent of making something that makes sound. So you can really think of it either way around. You're like, okay, I have an idea for something that's an effect, a synthesizer, installation device, whatever, and you have no idea how to get there. And that's what this class is for, really. So you can get these really core ideas of, okay, how do I even get my computer to send code to an Arduino? What's an Arduino? How do I hook these things up? And that's what it is. And lots of interesting projects have come out of it. Last semester, somebody was making a distributed heart rate sensor so they could share heart rates from all over the world and have this one LED thing light up.
Wow.
And before that, somebody made a really interesting GPS controlled sample playback machine. So as they walked around their neighborhood, different things would happen. And then a lot of what we think of as like traditional synthesizers, in that we have filters and envelopes and oscillators, all that kind of stuff. And I've done this class several times. I've been with our dadageek since the beginning, and it's just keeps evolving. And one thing that it's different about this time is instead of it being all on a breadboard, which is super useful and it teaches you some stuff about electronics, it detracts from the actual learning about code. So this class is a little more focused of like, okay, you're going to learn about how to make code in a platform. So for this time, I made a little platform, and unfortunately I don't get to show it off in its full awesomeness yet because I just got it in last night and I just started testing it out and everything works.
Cool.
I just haven't had a chance to put any really cool code in it yet. So what's going on here is this is the device you'll get, and we've got 8 buttons and 8 potentiometers, 8 knobs, and we've got this really powerful Teensy, which is a type of Arduino, roughly speaking, and we can do audio in and audio out, and we can do MIDI in and out. And so you're just going to hook this up, and we're going to use it as a tool so you can say, oh, okay, now I can easily do that. You can plug SD cards into this thing. It has extra memory on it, so you can do sample-based stuff. You can have really long effects, all kinds of interesting things. So again, like this is going to be more focused on, we don't have to worry so much about the hardware, but as lots of people have done in this class, once it gets later on in it, we end up talking about like, okay, so you do want to make your own hardware because that's my kind of bullshit. And I've been, am I sharing my screen?
Yeah,
I think I am.
gotcha.
I'm Bleep Labs, and I've made all kinds of weird devices for some reason. And I know a lot about how to put things together within constraints, right? How to be like, okay, this is what I have. How do I kind of maximize this to be the most interesting, dumb little sound maker I can? Whether that be video synths or like this really simple drum machine that I brought back recently because people were into it. And so we can talk about things like that. But I've also done large scale LED installations, all kinds of stuff like that. And I've been teaching in all kinds of different ways involving these devices. And so it might seem daunting is what I'm getting at, is to be like, oh crap, I don't know how to make a device. I don't want to do that. That's fine. This is, you want to get into code, but the thing you're going to do in the code is makes sound. Just like in the last talk there, we were talking about like, okay, we want to make video games, right? And well, we're going to have to learn some code. So, it's not just like, well, now we're going to learn to code. It's like I always think about how I did terribly in math in high school. And then I get to college and there's physics, and it's like, oh, you mean math can do something? Like, oh, now it's useful. It's not just this stupid concept. So that's what we're going with here. And it also, I've had plenty of people who know some Python and know some Java, and then they get in here, it's like, oh, I'm really thinking about it differently, because you're not just basing it on the computer where, or even if you're just like writing web backend or whatever, you're like, oh, I'm hooking 2 things together. This is like, no, you have total control over this device and you can really make it do whatever you want. And so it's a different programming brain to think about. And I see a lot of people be like, oh, now I'm a better programmer. I'm a different programmer because I actually understand what this stuff was, rather than just, I'm going to Stack to copy and paste code too, but something like that. So yeah.
Yeah,
again,
this sounds awesome.
A lot of different synthesizers. Yeah.
You mentioned doing stuff with limitations, and I don't think there's a bigger limitation than a lockdown. And I think you really came up with a cool way to continue to teach what you're passionate about, but focus it in a way that's lockdown friendly, where you don't have to work with the hardware so much. You can just kind of have fun with it.
Yeah, and that was one of the initial concerns. What has it been? 2 times I've done this type of class, and it's been on the breadboard, and that was like, it was frustrating for people because I didn't get to just go over and be like, oh, well, there's your problem, and like we could fix things, but this time it's like, okay, no, I need to deliver it to them.
Yeah.
I also teach at ACC, and I've just learned a lot about how to teach online. I'm teaching people how to solder online, and it's a trip, but my early ideas of being like, oh god, this is going to be hell. Like, yeah, it's hell, but we can show you things, and in a lot of ways it's more comfortable for people. And so we all have lots to tell y'all out there, and lots of different avenues to do it, but interested in making synthesizers and getting into code. Hi.
Yeah, like I like, it's just like, I mean, having this device, it's like your palette. But then, what do you want to do with it? And you
Right.
let students get into it and start exploring it. And you know what's really cool. Like the platform that you're working with Teensy, and like with the Teensy audio platform and the
Yeah.
audio design tool and all of that. What's so cool is like when I'm making my synthesizers, and I go in and I start making them in with the same system design tool, and I pull out an object, and sure enough, it says contributed by Dr. Bleep, right?
Yeah,
And
it
I'm
was,
like, whoa, John Mike actually is involved in fundamentally building a lot of these kinds of systems.
yeah, I mean, and that's one thing that I talk about as people progress past the course and continue talking to me forever, because that's one thing we should all kind of mention in this is like, this is, and some people have this evening of like, this is just a start. Like, I really like that people continue to email me about all these little things. And as people get deeper and deeper, it's like, yes, we can talk about the wonkiest, most deep down stuff involved in making hardware and programming the libraries that are all the way down. But, it's not about that. But that's something we can get you towards. But yeah, hopefully I'll have some new stuff in the audio library soon.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. No, I use your granular stuff all the time.
Yeah, I just did a really big update on that after a student from 2 times ago made a better version of it. And I was like, oh yeah, I really need to improve it. So then I went back and based on his and looking back at everything. So made another one on there. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of synth nerds out there. I know a lot of synth nerds. This is like the ultimate destination for a synth nerd, right? This like brings all of it together. It's like, how about you just like whittle down and you just develop your own complex synthesizer?
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be complex is one thing too. It's like, yeah, a lot of people are going to start with a really grand idea, and I say that's great, and by the end of it they're like, it goes boop and it's great. It's like, I really think the funnest thing is like when you get it set up and you hit the button and you're like, oh shit, it did something. Like you have access to this hardware. And like every other piece of hardware around us, it's like we have very limited access to it. We have total control over this, and again, that's the working in constraints kind of thing of like, okay, well, what are we going to do with it? And yeah, so lots of fun algorithmic stuff where we started the evening talk about like, okay, you just want this thing to process MIDI. Great, it can do that. You want it to create arpeggios, they're going to go to something else. Great, it can do that. And you want it to make sound too. Great. It can also control all these addressable LEDs. It's got some addressable LEDs on it. And you could hook it up to thousands more kind of thing. So yeah, again, it's just coding is less daunting than a lot of people think, especially when you have like goals for it. And the class is mostly like goals oriented of like, we're going to go through this, and then the last third of the class is a lot of one-on-one of, okay, what do you want to make?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Having one of your classes before, I can say you're really good at explaining new concepts, and you're really good at talking about synthesis. So
cool, thanks. Yeah, you took modular. Wait, did you take my? Everyone here is has taught Ableton at some point, I think. But no, you took modular.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. No, what I think it's like just like with Matt's class, it's a really great introduction to Arduino as well, because everything's programmed in the Arduino environment. So if you're interested in jumping into that territory, it's like if you're interested in making things move, then like that's Matt's course. If you're interested in making sounds and synthesizers, then that's your course. But both of them are a perfect introduction. You're going to learn to code in Arduino.
Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, as always, I'm always super excited to see all the stuff that your students make, because they always make such awesome stuff.
Yeah, I didn't really have a nice sizzle reel for that, but you can see some of it on the Instagram, and so much of like the stuff on the website, just the dadageek website, is a lot of really interesting ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the one specifically you were talking about, the GPS based one. I think that was Johnny Walker's piece where he was kicking
Johnny
the can
did a lot of
down the road, and it was doing sample based stuff, and it was changing depending on where he was located. It's really cool.
Yeah, and a long time ago he made another incredible one that was like, it was an Erector set and it had a screen on it playing Rashomon, and then it was just like photo cells sitting on it triggering different sounds.
That's awesome.
Like, yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
Cool. All right.
Well, thank you so much for coming by, man.
Yep.
All right, take it easy. So yeah, if you're interested in taking John Mike's course, it is currently up. It is titled specifically Making Synths with Arduino. So right now, it is on all of our courses, or on sale for through the 14th. So, his course, you sign up for it, and he will ship you that kit, and then you will have it, and then you can use it again and again and again for so long. So I think it's a perfect way of getting into this kind of stuff.
Awesome. I think, yeah, lots of really good entry points into a new skill, lots of entry points into new inspiration, or maybe like a career pivot, or, just finding a really like healthy, constructive way to pass the time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And everyone's at home now, maybe working from home and stuff like that. You've got some more time. You want to pick up a new skill set. Think about new things that you could pick up, if it's all the way from a hobby all the way to maybe a potential career change. All of that is available. So Alberto, there's one last class that we have yet to talk about. Do you know which one that is?
I believe that's your class.
That's my class. Yeah, exactly. So we'll save that to the end. So my class, Intro to Video Performance and Projection Mapping. So I've been working with video and with music for a long time, and one of my biggest passions is developing real-time video content in many different forms, in many different ways. So I do love to work with programming environments. I love to work with hardware and build my own things, but I really love working in Resolume's Arena. It's an incredibly powerful software. And I work with it quite a bit, working with projection and projection mapping. So if you're not familiar with Resolume Arena, it's a really powerful live video environment. So you can work with high definition video in real time, but not only just creating and triggering clips maybe that you want to play back, but also generating video content and processing and changing video content in real time. And where it gets really powerful is when you do things that are synchronized to music in different ways as well, because it has really great tools to synchronize with different types of sound. So you can analyze sound and have video that's reacting in real time. And then it goes even further when you get into just taking those real-time video elements and getting into projection mapping, which I'm sure people have seen some of these projection mapped elements before, where it's like you have an object and you create a projection that perfectly fits inside of that system. And you can do some really incredible 3D elements that look like they're three-dimensional in space. So it's something that I've been working on for a really long time and playing around with. I got into it as, just like an art practice. I was interested in live performance with my electronic music practice. And I started experimenting with real-time visuals in different ways, and that got me deeper and deeper and deeper in working with Resolume and what you can do inside of this software. So I'm really passionate about this. I really like this application. I'm going to show y'all. I've got a few different things that I can just show, like some really quick things, and then also what's cool is where it ended up leading me. Just getting into this stuff, right? I got into it because I was just curious, because I wanted to do more cool stuff with visuals, and then it ends up that now I have gigs that are based on being able to do real-time video for people, or projection mapped visuals and things like that for big venues. So it's one of those things that I started into it, and all of a sudden it just developed and developed and developed into a full career path. So it's kind of like what we want for all of these dadageek classes to fundamentally be able to do. For people, and that's a good example of that. So yeah, let me show y'all some examples. Alberto, sorry you won't get to see it, but I'm just gonna project it out into the real world through OBS. But yeah, just like an example of where I wanted to go with this kind of stuff when I was first experimenting with it, which was like inside my music practice. And I'm just gonna scrub through some a part of this real quick, just so y'all can see an example of what this is. Oh, wrong one. Hold on. Let me find the correct one. Here we go. All right. So here is an example. This would be an example of working with the musician Dead, who is now based in Austin. So this is me doing some real-time visuals with him. Oh yeah. Well, no, it's actually playing the wrong video. Oh, I see what it's doing. There we go. Okay, my bad. Here it goes. Here's the real one. This is what it is. There we go. Finally got it. It was just muted. All right, there it goes. So here, let me scrub around to a part that I really like. So this is examples of working with Resolume and some of the real-time video inside of it. So yeah, that's like just some of these examples of where you can do that kind of like he has really glitch-based visuals or glitch-based like music, and I love working with really glitch-based visuals. And so that's like working with basic elements and creating effects and processes that all work in real time. Now, what's cool is also all of the lighting that's happening in the space is also being controlled by Resolume. So you can do so much more than just the visuals. You can actually bring it into the world of working with lighting effects as well. And so you can actually take visuals that control lights in different ways. For example, one of the the recent projects that we did, Dumpster Fire, where we made a couple of dumpsters look like they were actually on fire while Thor Harris and Lyman Hardy banged on them. All the flame effects and the fog machines are all being controlled by Resolume as well. So that's actually all being done with video-based control systems. So as well, say for example, here's another example of working with stuff based with my music, and I'll do the same thing, just kind of scrub to a spot real quick, and we'll see if this plays. So yeah, that's just an example of one of the kind of the things that just I was experimenting with while quarantine was really, we were all kind of in lockdown and stuck at home for a long time, right? So it's some of the practices I'm experimenting with. And what's happening there is it kind of looks like a lighted table, but instead it's actually a projection from above. And I just cut out with software all the different pieces of equipment that are on the table. So it makes it look like it's being lit from underneath. And it gives a really cool effect, especially when you start moving the image and changing things. It's almost like this weird, interesting three-dimensional shape that goes on to it. So yeah, what's up?
Just for people thinking about this, would somebody need access to a projector or some kind of equipment like that for this course?
You don't have to. It's always great if you have one, or if you want to experiment with one, then that's always a plus. But you definitely don't need to have one, because we can still practice the projection mapping inside the software to be able to experiment with it, so that one day when you have access to that projector, you'll then know what to do when you sit down and playing around with it. So yeah, there's a lot of options for like renting projectors and things if you want to start getting into this, but you don't want to spend money on projection. There's a lot of ways of cheap introductory ways of getting into this stuff by just renting a projector from. It's not required to do that. And also just projection mapping is just one element of what we're going to be doing as well. There's going to be a lot that's about like VJing and real-time video and audio reactive video as well. So as I started exploring this, I started playing around. I should start doing things with this. So I started getting gigs doing different things. Here is a brief example of, this is something that's maybe like much further away from the artistic thing that I would normally be doing, that I would normally be creating. But I was hired to do some projection mapping for the ACL Live at the Moody Theater, where they have, the big background which shows the Austin skyline. If you're familiar with ACL at the Moody, sometimes you see it on PBS. They wanted the background to be projection mapped, and so here's just a really quick video I took with my my cell phone that shows how I created that. So yeah, and you can just start creating like different setups for big events and things like that. And what that was 3 different projectors that were all blended together, that were all put together. And then I just cropped out all the different buildings and put it all together so you could see it. It looked like the whole city skyline was illuminated. So it's a lot of fun to do that kind of stuff. And of course, then I was in charge of the projected visuals for the BK BuzzFest. For the main event plaza that just happened recently. So you saw some images from that, but I can play that video that I played a little bit earlier that you get an idea of what that looks like. So yeah, all of those visuals, a lot of that visual content was created in Resolume, but then I also used Resolume to do all of the projections, which is when I was using 2 big projectors and blending the 2 screens together so that you can use both projectors at the same time. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things, like if you're just interested in, say you're a musician and you want to add live visuals to your music, then this is exactly perfect for it because there's so many ways of interacting with it. There's even ways of linking it with Ableton Live that we'll be talking about. As well, if you're already working in video, but you want to learn how to work with real-time video for like working with maybe doing VJing and things along those lines, or if you want to get into working with projection systems, this is all like a great way of starting into this territory. And Resolume is an amazing software to be able to do all of these types of things. So yeah, if you ever have any questions about the course and the types of things that we're going to be covering inside the course, please do feel free to reach out to me directly, kyle@dadageek.com, and I'll be more than happy to answer any of those questions.
I think we've got a really well-rounded quarter this year, and I think something that I look for when I take courses is trusting that I'm going to receive instruction from people that have relevant experience, or that I can, you're putting sometimes your future in the hands of somebody. And it's great to see that the people behind our courses actually have a passion for what they're teaching, and they have real world experience, and they can pass it on to you. And that's a really valuable thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and one thing that's really unique about all of our courses is that all of them are one-on-one with instructors, right? So like you're actually in the room with them, or in the Zoom, in like a virtual room with them. So you can actually talk to them and reach out to them and ask them questions in real time. Now, usually a lot of these other places where you can take some courses, you sign up for a course and they have maybe like 100 some odd plus people in the room at the same time. So you never really get to communicate with the instructor. But we cap all of our courses at 14 students. So that means you're going to get a lot of interaction with the instructor to be able to ask questions in real time and get the real-time learning environment that I think works best for when you're learning these kinds of things and when you're being hands-on in your own space. So yeah, everyone that has joined us, thank you so much for checking it out. If you're watching this later on, feel free to reach out, check with us, ask some questions. We would love to talk with you as well. Right now, like we talked about, all of our courses are at an early bird discount, so jump on it because that's happening through the 14th. So please jump on that quickly if you want to take advantage of that. As well, please look into our scholarship opportunities if you're interested in that. We have some awesome scholarship opportunities. We have basic $100 scholarship opportunities. We have full course scholarship opportunities. We have BIPOC scholarships, so Black, Indigenous, and People of Color scholarship specific programs. And we also have a payment plan option as well. So say, for example, you want to get you have a $100 scholarship, but it's still hard for you to pay the rest of the tuition up front. No problem. We can separate that payment out throughout the quarter. So we have a lot of ways that we can work with you. So just reach out to us if ever you have any questions about those kinds of things, because we want to bring as much of this to everyone as possible. So we want to make sure that everyone has access to these things because we have such a passion for it. We want to make sure everyone else is able to access it.
Yeah, and speaking to that, if maybe you're not in a position to take a course, maybe it doesn't work with your schedule, but you might know somebody that does or is in that position, please help us out and spread the word. Share a link, share this stream if you can. It would mean a lot to us. We're still a relatively young organization, and a lot of people don't know that this is happening in their hometown. And that's our goal, is making sure that everybody knows that they have access to this world class access to education.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Reach out, check out our website, look through all of our old classes, our old videos, and our old exhibitions and things like that. Get inspired to learn new things. And like Alberto says, if a class is not for you, it doesn't work with your schedule, send it to someone else who you think will, right? Send it to another geek that you know is going to love this kind of stuff. As well, if you find it in your heart to be able to donate to us, you can donate to us at our dadageek website. On the courses page, you can find at the bottom there's a donation area. You can also get a gift card. All the donations go directly to our scholarship fund to just support more people taking our classes, just so we can grow our scholarship fund even bigger and bigger, so more and more people can get scholarships. All right, Alberto, thank you so much for joining throughout all of this and help and hanging out with me through all of it. It's been a lot of fun to get to hang out and see everybody.
And our instructors today.
Yeah, I'm so glad that they got to stop by and talk about their courses, because they've got some really cool things to say. All right.
Thanks for the time today too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So reach out, ask questions, and we'll see y'all in a course hopefully sometime soon.